Hello, guys and gals, and this is part 20 of our reading of the Harvard Classics. And the Harvard Classics are composed of the Apology, Phaedo, and Credo of Plato, which we've read, the Golden Sayings of Epictetus, which we are reading right now. The Apology, Phaedo, and Credo of Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett, which we read, the Golden Sayings of Epictetus, translated by Hastings Crossley, which we are reading now, and the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, translated by George Long, which we'll be reading at a future time. This book was edited by Charles W. Eliot, LLD, with introductions and notes. And now we're going to go over the copyright information, which clearly says it is copyright 1980, 1937, and 1907 by Grolier Enterprises Corporation. And we are going to pick up where we left off, which I believe was number 134 of the Golden Sayings of Epictetus. And we are ready. Number 134. To a good man there is no evil, either in life or death, and if God supply not food, has he not, as a wise commander, sounded the signal for retreat, and nothing more? I obey, I follow, speaking good of my commander, and praising his acts, for at his good pleasure I came, and I depart when it pleases him. And while I was yet alive, that was my work, to sing praises unto God. Number 135. Reflect that the chief source of all evils to man, and of baseness and cowardice, is not death, but the fear of death. Against this fear, then, I pray you harden yourself. To this let all your reasonings, your exercises, your reading tend. Then shall you know that thus alone are men set free. Number 136. He is free who lives as he wishes to live, to whom none can do violence, none hinder or compel. Those impulses are unimpeded, whose desires attain their purpose, who falls not into what he would avoid. Who then would live in error? None. Who would live deceived and prone to fall, unjust, intemperate, in subject, whining at his lot? None. Then doth no wicked man live as he would, and therefore neither is he free. Number 137. Thus do the more cautious of travelers act. The road is said to be beset by robbers. The traveler will not venture alone, but awaits the companionship on the road of an ambassador, a quaestor, or a proconsul. To him he attaches himself, and thus passes by in safety. So doth the wise man in the world. Many are the companies of robbers and tyrants, many the storms, the straits, the losses of all a man holds dearest. Whither shall he fly for refuge? How shall he pass by unassailed? What companion on the road shall he await for protection? Such and such a wealthy man of consular rank. And how shall I be profited, if he is stripped and falls to lamentation and weeping? And how if my fellow traveler himself turns upon me and robs me? What am I to do? I will become friend of Caesar's. In his train none will do me wrong. In the first place, the indignities I must endure to win distinction. The multitude of hands that will be to rob me. And if I succeed, Caesar, too, is but a mortal. While should it come to pass that I offend him, whither shall I flee from his presence? To the wilderness? And may not fever await me there? What then is to be done? Cannot a fellow traveler be found that is honest and loyal, strong and secure against surprise? Thus doth the wise man reason, considering that if he would pass through in safety, he must attach himself unto God. Number 133. Sorry. No, wait, that's not right. 37. 138, excuse me. I'm bad with Roman numerals. Number 138. How understandeth thou attach himself to God? That what God wills, he should will also, and what God wills not, neither shall he will. How then must this come to pass? By considering the movements of God and his administration. Please hold just a sec. Number 139. And doth thou that hast received all from another's hands repine and blame the giver, if he takes anything from thee? Why, who art thou, and to what end comest thou here? Was it not he that brought thee into the world? Was it not he that make the light manifest unto thee, and gave thee fellow workers and senses, and the power to reason? And how brought he thee into the world? Was it not as one born to die, and one bound to live out his earthly life in some small tabernacle of flesh, to behold his administration, and for a little while to share with him in the mighty march of this great festival procession? Now therefore, that thou hast beheld, while it was permitted thee, the solemn feast and assembly, wilt thou not cheerfully depart when he summons thee forth with adoration and thanksgiving for what thou hast seen and heard? Nay, but I would fain have stayed longer at the festival. Ah, so would the mystics fain have the rites prolonged. So perchance would the crowd of the great games fain behold more wrestlers. Still, but the solemn assembly is over. Come forth, depart, and thanksgiving and modesty, or with thanksgiving and modesty, give place to others that must come into being, even as thyself. Number 140. 40. Well, why art thou thus insatiable? Why thus unreasonable? Why encumber the world? Aye, but I fain would have my wife and children with me too. What are they then thine, and not his that give them? His that made thee. Give up then that which is not thine own. Yield it to one who is better than thou. Nay, but why did he bring one into the world on these conditions? If it suits thee not, depart. He hath no need of a spectator who finds fault with his lot. Then that will take part in the feast he needeth, that will lift his voices with the rest, that men may applaud the more and exalt the great assembly in hymns and songs of praise. But the wretched and the fearful he will not be displeased to see absent from it. For when they were present, they did not behave as at a feast, nor fulfill their proper office, but moaned as though in pain, and found fault with their fate, their fortune, and their companions, insensible to what had fallen to their lot, insensible to the power they had received for a very different purpose, the power of magnanimity, honor, nobility of heart, and fortitude of freedom. Number 141. Art thou then free? A man must say, so help me heaven. I long and pray for freedom. But I cannot look my master boldly in the face. I still value the poor body. I still set much store in its preservation, whole and sound. But I can point thee out a free man that thou mayst be no more in search of an example. Diogenes was free. How so? Not because he was of free parentage, for that indeed he was not the case, but because he was himself free. He had cast away every handle whereby slavery might lay hold upon him, nor was it possible for any to approach and take hold of him to enslave him. All things sat loose upon him. All things were to him attached by but slender ties. Hadst thou seized upon his possessions, he would rather have let them go than have followed thee for them. Aye, had it been even a limb, or mayhaps his whole body, and in like manner relatives, friends, and country. For he knew whence they came, from whose hands and on what terms he had received them. His true forefathers, the gods, his true country, he never would have abandoned, nor would he have yielded to any man in obedience and submission to the one, nor in cheerfully dying for the other. For he was ever mindful that everything that comes to pass has its source and origin, there being indeed brought about for the weal of that his true country, and directed by him to whose government it is. Number 142. Ponder on this, on these convictions, on these words, fix thine eyes on these examples, if thou wouldst be free. If thine hast thine heart set upon the matter according to its worth, and what marvel of thou purchase so great a thing at so great and high a price, for the sake of this that men deem liberty. Some hang themselves, others cast themselves down from the rocks. Aye, time has been when whole cities came utterly to an end, while for the sake of the freedom that is true and sure and unassailable, doth thou grudge to God what he gave when he claims it? Wilt thou not study, as Plato saith, to endure not death alone, but torture, exile, stripes, in a word, to render up all that is not thine own? Else thou wilt be a slave amid slaves. Wert thou 10,000 times a consul? Aye, not a whit the less. Though thou climb the palace steps, and thou shalt know how true the saying of Cleanthes said, though the words of philosophy may run counter to the opinions of the world, yet have they reason on their side. Number 143. Ask how a man shall be best grieve his enemy, Epictetus replied, by setting himself to live the noblest life himself. Number 144. I am free, I am a friend of God, ready to render him willing obedience. Of all else I will set store by nothing, neither by mine own body, nor possessions, nor office, nor good report, nor, in a word, aught else beside. For it is not his will that I should so set store by these things. Had it been his pleasure, he would have placed my good therein. But now he hath not done so. Therefore I cannot transgress one jot of his commands. In everything hold fast to that which is thy good. But to all else, as far as is given thee within the measure of reason only, contented with this alone. Else thou wilt meet with failure, ill success, let and hindrance. These are the laws ordained by God. These are his edicts. These a man should expound and interpret. To these submit himself, not the laws of Mesurius and Cassius, their famous Roman jurists. We are to number 145. Remember that not the love of power and wealth sets us under the heel of others, but even the love of tranquility, of leisure, of change of scene, of learning in general. It matters not what the outward thing may be. To set store by it is to place thyself in subjection to another. Where is the difference then between desiring to be a senator and desiring not to be one, between thirsting for office and thirsting to be quit of it? Where is the difference between crying, "Woe is me, I know not what to do, bound hand and foot as I am to my books, so that I cannot stir," and crying, "Woe is me, I have no time to read"? As though a book were not as much an outward thing and independent of the will, and office, and power, and the receptions of the great. Or what reason hast thou, tell me, for desiring to read? For if thou aim at nothing beyond the mere delight of it, or gaining some scrap of knowledge, thou art but a poor, spiritless knave. But if thou desirest to study to its proper end, what else is this than a life that flows on tranquil and serene? And if thy reading secures thee not serenity, what profits it? Nay, but it doth secure it, quoth he, and that is why I repine at being deprived of it. And what serenity is this that lies at the mercy of every passer-by? I say not at the mercy of the emperor or emperor's favorite, but such as trembles at a raven's cloak and piper's din, a fever's touch, or 1,000 things of like sort. Whereas the life serene has no more certain mark than this, that it ever moves with constant unimpeded flow. Number 146. If thou hast put malice and evil speaking from thee altogether, or in some degree, if thou hast put away from thee rashness, foulness of tongue, intemperance, sluggishness, if thou art not moved by what once moved thee, or in like manner as thou once wert moved, then thou mayst celebrate a daily festival today, because thou hast done well in the matter, tomorrow in that. How much greater cause is here for offering sacrifice than if a man should become counsel or perfect? Number 147. These things hast thou from thyself and from the gods. Only remember who it is that giveth them, to whom and for what purpose they are given, feeding thy soul on thoughts like these. Dost thou debate in what place happiness awaits thee? In what place thou shalt do God's pleasure? Are not the gods nigh unto all places alike? See they not alike what elsewhere comes to pass? What everywhere comes to pass. Okay. Now, number 148. To each man God hath granted this inward freedom. These are the principles that in a house create love, in a city concord, among nations peace, teaching a man gratitude towards God and cheerful confidence, whereas he may be in dealing with outward things that he knows are neither his nor worth striving after. Number 149. If you seek truth, you will not seek to gain victory by every possible means. And when you found truth, you need not fear being defeated. Number 150. What foolish talk is this? How can I any longer lay claim to right principles, if I am not content at being what I am, but am all aflutter about what I am supposed to be? Number 151. God hath made all things in the world, nay, the world itself, free from hindrance and perfect, and its parts, for the use of the whole. No other creature is capable of comprehending his administration thereof. But the reasonable being, man, possesses faculties for the consideration of all these things. Not only that he is himself a part, but what part he is, and how it is meet that the parts should give place to the whole. Nor is this all. Being naturally constituted noble, magnanimous, and free, he sees that the things which surround him are of two kinds. Some are free from hindrance in the power of the will. Others are subject to hindrance and depend on the will of other men. If then he place his own good, his own best interest, only in that which is free from hindrance and in his power, he will be free, tranquil, happy, unharmed, noble-hearted, and pious, giving thanks for all things unto God, finding fault with nothing that comes to pass, laying no charge against anything. Whereas if he places his good in outward things, depending not on the will, he must be subject to hindrance and restraint, the slave of those that have power over the things he desires and fears. He must be impious, as deeming himself injured at the hands of God. He must be unjust, as ever prone to claim more than his due. He must perforce be of a mean and subject spirit. Number 152. Whom then shall I yet fear? The lords of the bedchamber, lest they should shut me out. If they find me desirous of entering in, let them shut me out, if they will. Then why comest thou to the door? Because I think it meet the right, so long as the play lasts, to take part therein. In what sense art thou then shut out? Because unless I am admitted, it is not my will to enter. On the contrary, my will is simply that which comes to pass. For I esteem what God wills better than what I will. To him will I cleave as his minister and attendant, having the same movements, the same desires, in a word, the same will as he. There is no such thing as being shut out for me, but only for them that would force their way in. Number 153. But what says Socrates? One man finds pleasure in improving his land, another his horses. My pleasure lies in seeing that I myself grow better day by day. Number 154. The dress is suited to the craft. The craftsman takes his name from the craft, not from the dress. For this reason, Euphrates was right in saying, I long endeavored to conceal my following the philosophic life, and this profited me much. In the first place, I knew that what I did all right. I did not for the sake of lookers on, but for my own. I ate all right unto myself. I kept the even tenor of my walk, my glance composed and serene, all unto myself and unto God. Then, as I fought alone, I was alone in peril. If I did anything amiss or shameful, the cause of philosophy was not in me endangered. Nor did I wrong the multitude by transgressing as I professed as a professed philosopher. Wherefore those that knew not my purpose marveled how it came about, that whilst all my life and conversation was passed with philosophies without exception, I was yet none myself, and what harm that the philosopher should be known by his acts instead of by mere outward signs and symbols. Number 155. First study to conceal that what thou art. Seek wisdom a little while unto thyself. Thus grows the fruit. First, the seed must be buried in the earth for a little space. There it must be hid and slowly grow, that it may reach maturity. But if it produces the ear before the jointed stalk, it is imperfect, a thing from the garden of Adonis. Such a sorry growth art thou. Thou hast blossomed too soon. The winter cold will wither thee away. Now Adonis says, potted plants of forced growth carried by the procession in honor of Adonis. Okay. First, okay, this is number 156. First of all, condemn the life thou art now leading. But when thou hast condemned it, do not despair of thyself. Be not like them of mean spirit, who once they have yielded, abandon themselves entirely, and as it were allow the torrent to sweep them away. No, learn what the wrestling masters do. Has the boy fallen? Rise, they say. Wrestle again till thy strength comes to thee. Even thus should it be with thee. For know that there is nothing more tractable than the human soul. It needs but a will, and the thing is done. The soul is set upon the right path, as on the contrary it needs but to nod over the task, and all is lost. For ruin and recovery alike are from within. And we made it to 157. We are going to stop this for now. Let me quickly write down the notes here. While I do the outro, we've been reading the Harvard Classics, specifically the Golden Sayings of Epictetus. And so yeah, if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you support me in any way, if you want to join the Discord server, all information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.